This is Playtime, a 1967 film created by Jacques Tati. Now if you don't know who he is, don't worry, neither did I. If you've heard this film before and you aren't into films that much, chances are you probably heard it via Donkey's video, which is where I discovered it. His video is amazing, and it's the reason why I decided to give this movie a shot, and in return, this video. I'm not a film buff, or a film major, or any of those terms that make you think of old classic films. I'm primarily a noodle. I just watch movies and I like some of them, and Playtime just so happens to be one of them. But to call Playtime a movie is a bit out there in the eyes of some, and what I mean by that is, take a look at some of these shots. Anything look a bit off? A lot of these movies don't really feel like they'd be in a normal movie you're thinking of. A lot of these shots seem like security cameras. This doesn't seem like a movie, this seems like a recording for a participant observation study in a college class. There's barely any dialogue, there's barely any cohesive story. What am I watching here? To understand the vision of why someone would do this in 1967, we gotta step back and look into Jacques Tati's history. Don't worry, we won't go through his entire biography like what sports he did, just enough for you to understand his history with film and acting. Born in 1908, Jacques Tati began acting in music hall entertainers around the 1930s, with emphasis on a mixture of satire, ballet, sport, and charade. This is important to note, as it directly connects the way he acts later on in his films. Yeah, he's one of those directors that both direct and act in his movies, similar to M. Night Shyamalan, who was the first person I thought of for that. He also participated in World War II of the French, but I didn't know how to segment that into the script, so here it is. In the 1940s, he would fully delve into filmmaking, with his first major directorial and acting debut being The School for Postmen. And by watching this short film, you can immediately grasp the type of movies he wanted to make. Visual comedy. A lot of his films, including Playtime, lack dialogue, and most of the entertainment or the plot relies on the physical acting of the actors, to very entertaining degrees. Visual actors like the one from Mr. Bean cites Jacques Tati as an inspiration for his movements and actions, and you can instantly identify it. There's been many video essays on how Tati was able to perfect his blend of visual comedy, with many pointing out a setup to a joke, and then the landing of a joke, or the unlanding of a joke to subvert your expectations for shits and giggles. It's the everyday things that people use that Tati takes advantage of to create these weird scenarios. A lot of the shit that happens don't really logically make sense, but they make sense visually, managing a good dose of stupidity mixed in with genuine work. A lot of the jokes don't come out of nowhere, they're established either right before the joke or very early on. It creates a very fulfilling reward for paying attention. All of his films, from his first all the way to Playtime, have a sort of game to it, where the objective is to find what funny event is about to happen. It requires a level of investment for you to fully enjoy it, and that may not be everyone's cup of tea, which we'll get into very soon. We also gotta take into account the time these films were made. This is the 1940s, this is old. Technology was limited, cameras were limited, audio was limited. The decision to go this route of physical comedy was one that took advantage of the limited technology, and it works incredibly well. His films are full of gags, which is what I'll be calling his jokes since a lot of them have build up to it. One of my favorite gags is the one The Big Day, where he jumps over the railroad blocking lines, and when he's about to jump the last one, the railroad lines lift up and his bicycle gets lifted up. It's kind of funny. The best part though is that after signaling for his bicycle to be put down, he just pushes open the gate, showing how fucking useless this scene was. The acting really carries these films, along with the music, since lack of dialogue is present for most of his films. It's like a silent film the more I think about it. One thing you may notice though about what you're seeing is that the movies you're watching look like movies. They're filmed like movies, they look like movies, which probably makes you ask, why does Playtime look like that? Well, let's move over to 1958. Tati has just released his newest film, My Uncle, starring his titular character, Mr. Hulot. Now, Mr. Hulot was a character Tati played in his films. In fact, he's a reoccurring character in the last two movies he produced. But I guess he started to hate Mr. Hulot because right when My Uncle released, he was like, fuck Mr. Hulot, I don't want a film that's just on him, I want a film that's on everyone. And now that I've stated that, I think you begin to understand why the movie looks the way it does. But let's continue. Playtime released in 1967, meaning that it took around 9 years for the movie to fully come out. And Tati was ambitious with this, both in technology and production. He wanted a movie where the actors weren't spectators or had small roles. He wanted everyone to feel like they were the stars. He wanted to break the art form of films, go against the rules of what was typically done. He decided to shoot his film in 70mm format, which had the benefits of being widescreen, and I want to emphasize how fucking insane that is. Look at My Uncle, and then look at Playtime. It was honestly insane of him to do this, but hey man, people were able to rescan the footage for that crisp quality, so it must have been worth it. If you've been watching the footage, you may notice that a lot of these buildings are very weird. Now I'll be addressing it when I talk about the movie itself, but get this shit. Everything you see in this movie, the locations, the buildings, it was all created for Playtime. This crazy dude thought it would be an amazing idea to create an entire city for his movie, and it was literally titled Tattyville. Reading the article genuinely made me flabbergasted. He hired 100 construction workers, had its own power plant, and approach roads all for this movie. Everything you see was created for this movie. Now what's expensive? Yeah, no shit. It was around 17 million francs, which translated to today's currency is, oh my god! Okay, so I think we should talk about the movie now so you know how good it is. So for preparation for this video, I avoided any reviews besides Donkey, and after watching it, I think there are 3 ways to watch it. You can either watch it at face value, not understanding Tati's work and why he did what he did, treating it like a random movie you put on. You can watch it as Tati envisioned, which I'll talk about soon, or you can watch it as a critique on society and the world regarding things like technology. Now, I had all three mindsets going in when watching this movie, and you'll most likely have the three mindsets as well, but for the sake of this video and explaining the movie, it's best to separate them as such. If you watch the movie at face value, you will not know what the fuck is going on. The camera being so zoomed out will make you question what to focus on. There's barely any dialogue and so much physical movement that might as well be a silent film. Sound effects take control. Footsteps and audible laughter are all you'll hear. Cars driving, ambient noise is plastered all over this that part of you might think this is just a raw recording they did on a random Tuesday. There is no cohesive plot for you to follow. Things just happen, only sometimes do certain events get focused on that give you some idea of what's going on. It seems that everyone in the movie is both important and not important. You follow this guy in a coat and a hat for a little bit, and then suddenly the camera shifts over to this bus full of American tourists and now they're the attention. It's confusing, it's bizarre, and it's hard to follow. I mean, what do you follow? A lot of people would say it's a clusterfuck, and while I understand that, I think that's the point. Okay, not the clusterfuck part, but the fact that the movie is so hard to follow. This is where we shift to the second way we can view the movie, which is what Tati envisioned it to be. This movie is sort of a choose-your-own-adventure type movie, where you can realistically follow anyone you want to. Take this shot. What are you focusing on right now? Are you focused on the conversation these guys are having? Or maybe the guy advertising the weird vacuum? Maybe you're focusing on this girl who walks back and forth just looking at the computers. This is purposeful. It's intended to be framed this way in order for anyone to be the focus of the shot. This movie is less of a movie, but more so an adventure, a day of the life of someone. When Tati wanted the movie to focus on everyone, he really meant it. Almost every scene is a wide shot that often has multiple people doing whatever they're doing. Phone calls, talking, walking, all of them have some sense of importance. Not all shots have the same level of characters, but it only goes to further the importance of those that are on screen. If your eyes are keen, you'll roughly figure out our protagonists. We have Mr. Hula, returning from Tati's other films, and Barbara, an American tourist traveling in Paris for a day. The film mainly follows these two as they get into their own adventures, the type of people they meet, the type of places they go. It's very natural and it's very slow. This film is around 2 hours, but I can safely say that it felt longer. And this is one of the few times I can say that's a good thing. A lot of the movie is just ambience, relying on the environment and framing to keep you intrigued. It's also here where we should talk about the architecture and designs of the movie. I could go the obvious route and say, oh my god, liminal spaces, which I mean is true, but you know. It adds to the wideness of the movie. A lot of these locations are very empty, adding a level of nuance to certain jokes. From a production standpoint, it makes sense that they're as empty as they are due to that being the purpose. In one scene, it may appear open and wide, but just shortly after, a group of people can tighten the shot very quickly. Even outside, it still has that wideness vibe to it, which is again, very purposeful. It adds to the scale of the world, emphasizing how small a view is as we follow only a handful of characters. Many buildings have glass windows that are very weird if you think about it from a normal perspective. That's your privacy being aired out to the world, and it adds to the bizarre nature of it. But it makes sense from a filming perspective because it's another view you can look at, another person you can follow. When watching this movie, I found myself wondering why I wasn't bored. Shit like this is interesting, but what kept me intrigued? Looking around at other people can only be entertaining for so long, and it's here where Tati's signature comedy comes into play, and some of it isn't entirely comedy based. With the runtime of this movie, he sets up a ton of gags that last all the way through. Some are short, some are long, but it's enough to provide a sense of continuity. A lot of things in this world seem idiotic or ironic, but it adds to the charm of the world. Visual comedy rules over this movie. Multiple times you'll have a deep sigh with the amount of stupid shit that happens, yet there's a sense of genuinity that gives the film a sense of being real. Its comedy is natural. There's no funny music that occurs when a gag happens. I'm not very used to the style of film, so I don't even have the right words to describe it. It feels honest with itself, and I think that's a good way of describing it. It knows what it is, and it does its best to do so. There's this gag that occurs between Hula and this businessman as they try to meet up with each other. They keep barely missing each other, and due to the comedic nature, sometimes it's fucking stupid. This goes on for over an hour before they're both clocked out, looking at some dudes holding a window, and then see each other. Subplots. That's a good way to describe it. Playtime has a bunch of subplots that occur all over the movie, and it's your job to find them all. Characters you may see in the movie actually appeared way earlier, you just didn't notice them. In a normal movie, they need to pace the subplots so each one gets more focus, but in a movie like this, they all take the attention and it's your decision to choose which one you want to focus on. And the movie is really good at making it so no matter what path you choose, it all leads to the same place. the restaurant. This is one of the final set pieces in the movie where almost all the characters you see in the movie make some sort of appearance where they're just doing shit. And let me talk about some of my favorite moments slash gags, because a lot of it is in this restaurant scene. Firstly, I love the couch gag. It begins with Hulot pressing on the couch and it squeezes and comes back up. And it happens over and over again. It's this amazing thing, and honestly, I agree, I love it too. There's this moment early on in the movie where this girl sneaks behind a police officer. It's not given a dramatic moment or intense zoom in, no. It just happens, and it can totally bypass your mind since you're probably focusing on Hulot. There's this recurring bit where Hulot is almost constantly interrupted by someone who knew him from the army, and that's how he gets involved with a lot of the plot events. He gets into a random apartment, he suddenly works for a restaurant, and the restaurant, holy shit. The whole premise is that this restaurant is not ready to open. It's still in construction, but they say fuck it and decide to open anyway. The tiles aren't properly stuck, and nothing is right. This entire sequence is insane, as more people come in, and chaos begins ensuing. It's where the film shines the brightest in terms of subplots, because so many things happen, while also maintaining the chaos and not being a total clusterfuck. You have this gag where the construction of the entire building fucking sucks. People randomly bump into pillars that have no reason to be there. For some reason, everything wasn't measured correctly. They can't slide the food out, this bartender can't see because these decorations are too long. So many of the waiters get a lot of attention. This one makes sure he looks good. There's this one waiter who gets his pants ripped and he has to stand outside all sad. But when the other waiters rip one of their clothes, they go outside and switch with that waiter, making it so he looks more and more miserable every time. Hulot is dragged in by his army friend. He's like, no bro, I don't want to do this, and the door fucking breaks. But for some reason, people act like the door is still there, and Hulot acts as a doorknob dude until the army dude takes over for him. And then soon enough, one of the people just passes by the army dude like the door doesn't exist, and he gets really sad about that. There's this joke about how hard technology is, with this large interface with buttons that don't correspond to anything. It appears in the building where the dude using it just gives up and waits for the business dude to arrive, which takes an abnormal amount of time. Anyway, right when the heat gets too high in the restaurant, they're like, shit, turn on the AC. And when they open the control panel, it's the same fucking thing from the building, and they just start pressing buttons causing the AC to go haywire. There's this bit where the stair lights have to be slammed in order for it to turn on. It happens very early on when the restaurant just opens. Fast forward like 20 minutes later, and this dude trips over it, because how was he supposed to know that? All of this happens in a very short amount of time. It's chaos, it's crazy. But then it has moments like these. These types of scenes gravitate the attention towards them in a very natural way. It occurs in other parts of the movie as well. Everyone's having a conversation and then something loud happens, causing everyone and you, the viewer, to take a look. It's very natural and reinforces Playtime as a very good feel movie, I'd say. This movie is just a chance of encounters, a string of fate in other words. All these characters we see and follow just so happen to be where they are. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's huge. It's goofy, but knows when to be lighthearted, and it provides a sense of community and warmth when talking about humanity. We see how little events like these create companionship and bonds that could happen in real life. Let's quickly go over the third way you can view the movie, which is Tati's criticisms on society and technology. Within his visuals, he has some stances of aspects such as I described. How buildings are plastered with advertising for different locations, the conventions like tourist attractions where they're just selling shit. There's little things as well, such as this dude always having to pay a parking meter all the time for his apartment, and there's a sense of dread in the way society seems to be, especially in regards to communication between others. Look at these people all next to each other, watching the same shows, yet not acknowledging each other at all. It's all because of that damn phone. Now, do I think it's a genuine criticism? I don't personally think so, and given scenes like the restaurant, Tati shows how humanity can unite together when things go bad. As the restaurant crumbles, more people band together, talk together. It may be a little obnoxious and disrespectful and also illegal, but they're having fun. You know what this movie reminded me of? Conventions. A couple months ago, I went to SakuraCon, and for some reason this movie reminded me of it. A lot of time, the movie would chill, let the scene sink in with the bystanders walking around, and some of them may be people we've seen earlier before in the movie. At SakuraCon, I was running around a lot doing stuff, and I often saw the same people and wondered what they were doing, what they were going to. I guess it helps that playtime takes place in the course of a day in a tightly knit location. It doesn't go beyond Paris, just like how conventions don't really go beyond the convention center. It creates a little bond between everyone. We may not interact with each other, but we definitely recognize each other, and it creates a level of familiarity. You know when you look outside and see a bunch of cars or lights and you think about how each light is someone's life right there, how they have their own goals and the like? Just me? Okay, anyway. Well, Playtime encapsulates that, showing just a normal day at Paris and what some American tourists did. You follow them at almost every event until it reaches that climax where the next day arrives and they all leave, destined for their own adventures after. Of course, the movie still has normal movie beats, it has setups and the like. There's a whole setup with Barbara being unable to take a picture because she's always being interrupted, but would you look at that? She was finally able to take a picture. And the last thing that makes this movie what it is the music. Now, there's not that many music tracks, but there is one theme that plays, and it's Playtime's theme. This theme fully encapsulates Playtime, and it's the only reason why I watched the movie. The theme only plays at certain moments, but the times it does is always the most perfect moment, usually focusing on Hulot or Barbara. When the full theme plays, it feels so satisfying because it seems every part of the song is filled with a moment from the movie. So going off what I said, this movie is pretty good, right? I mean, I think so, but let's rewind back to what I said a long time ago about the budget. 17 million francs is nothing to scoff at. In fact, when it was released, it was the most expensive movie ever made in French history. A good portion of that budget was obviously on Tatyville, but let's just say that Tati had his work cut out for him. This film went through a lot of production hell, and most of it revolved around Tatyville, the entire set for the movie. It was a city, and you know what cities are affected by? The weather. There were multiple instances where heavy winds would tear apart the sets and millions of francs would have to be used to repair it. This was a whole construction set, and when you take into account that they had to constantly maintain it, the 9 years makes total sense. It gets worse though. There is no way you can individually have all that money for the film. So what do you have to do? Loans. And begging. Tati went to the prime minister to get a loan for his movie, and he was already in debt to things like taxes. Money kept dripping away, and the article states that it took over a year to actually shoot the film, with post-production taking 9 months. This was a gamble. In order for Tati to fully encapsulate his vision and share it to the world, he had to mortgage his future and his family, putting himself on the line for this big advancement in the history of film. He wanted it to be perfect. The original cut was over 2 hours long, but financial investors told him, nah bro, cut that shit down. This was his biggest shot. If everything came crumbling down, he would go down with it. The movie flopped, and I mean this in the nicest way possible. No shit. This movie would obviously turn away a lot of casual viewers. People didn't see this stuff before and weren't able to grasp an understanding. Even if you do understand, you really gotta view it in a certain mindset to really enjoy it. I say I enjoy it, but I can completely understand why the general public wouldn't. I watched this alone. If I watched it with a friend, I'd be side-eyeing to see if they're paying attention or not. Tati was kinda fucked no matter what, let's be real. There was no realistic way he could earn all that money back, doing something bold and new, but also being the most expensive movie ever made at the time. Let me reinforce this. He built an entire city. There was no way he was gonna make that back. Tati lost everything. His family house, his rights to his films, and the movie kinda sunk downward even if some critics liked it. It's really depressing seeing how passionate he was about this. He wanted people to see his vision. If theaters didn't have the 70mm format, they weren't getting an altered version. He wanted his original version shown. Allegedly, the reception of the movie made him refuse interviews, which I completely get. Imagine literally everyone saying they don't fuck with what you made when you poured your heart into it. And you know, obviously it wasn't over for him. He made another movie, he got his films back, he got into personal stuff that I don't know if I should talk about, and then he died, with Playtime being a sort of stain on him financially. Pretty fucking depressing. Then you know, a couple decades later, wins a bunch of awards and is crowned a really great movie that just did really bad financially. Fuck me, dude. Imagine making a movie that kills my entire life financially, then y'all appreciate it after I'm dead. That's crazy. I'd be pissed off. I come back to life after that. But maybe I'm overstepping my boundaries. I don't know what the man thought. I couldn't find his words, so maybe he just didn't have it in him to talk about it. It's a tragedy. You saw how I talked about the film. Even if you don't agree with the many choices he made, you have to admire what he was going for. When someone puts that much passion into a craft, sometimes you tend to get infected by it and see what they see. And it's a shame a ton of people weren't able to see that. No one's perfect, Tati isn't perfect, but in terms of Playtime, he really didn't get the respect he deserved. And that's a damn shame. Now, will I watch any of Jacques Tati's other films? Probably not. Playtime was the only intriguing one to me, but I can respect what he did. I've had this video idea for over half a year now, and it's nice to get out of your comfort zone, experiment with something you've never seen before to get a new understanding. That's what I did, and I'm glad I could, experience it and the like. Now I'm gonna go back to playing Deltarune.